Hello everybody and greetings and welcome to the 13th Justin and Friends, or I'm sorry, the 13th War the Vision community stream with Justin and Friends. Today we have some very special guests for you all from the Japan team, from the scenario team, and also we have a member from the community team. They are joining me here today on this side. You can see all three of them. We will get to some formal introductions here very shortly. But yes, they are here. We're going to talk about the main scenario a little bit and dive into that. So if you're interested in like some of the story and that sort of stuff, you will, this is definitely the place that you want to be. We also have an interpreter. Of course, everybody here speaks Japanese. We have an interpreter on the line. That you may hear her voice in the background. You may be familiar with her from some other streams as well, but yes. So that's what we have today. It's going to be a pretty fun stream. It's going to be pretty great. I apologize for the delay. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty here, but we should be all good to go here. All right, so let me just make sure my ducks are all in a line here. The story, or part 2 of the story, has just sort of kind of concluded. So if you're not caught up, we are going to be discussing stuff that has happened very recently in the story. So there will be many spoilers that are talked about on the stream here. So if you are interested in the story and maybe don't want to be spoiled, maybe come back at a different time, maybe come back for a different stream or something, because this is 100% about the main scenario in the story. So yes. And yes, as you can see, we have some characters here on the screen, that sort of stuff. So hello everybody, thank you for joining. Of course, this wouldn't be a Justin and Friends stream without the sort of typical information that you guys expect here. Let me move my camera just slightly. So first up, we are going to be having some rewards today available for a little bit of a quiz that we're doing later on in the stream. This is going to test your knowledge on some of the story aspects or some of the characters, that sort of thing. So make sure you are ready for that, because it might be kind of difficult or it might be kind of easy. I guess we'll have to find out. But these are the rewards that are available. So yes, as you can see, for one correct answer, we get 3 Farpoint Archives keys. 2 correct answers, we get Energy Restore Potions Large. 20 of them, pretty great. And then the third one, should we get all 3 questions right, there are 100 event skip tickets. Pretty awesome. We need those event skip tickets, so please make sure you get all the questions correct. There's also some current events that are going on in the game. allow me to show them to you here. So we have the training challenge missions for completing the story, part 2. The rewards are very good. There's a lot of really great surprising stuff that are available for you. So please jump in, check them out, try to finish all the challenge missions and get some really awesome rewards. There's also a few vision cards that are available. 2 of them you can just kind of get by logging in or doing the raid. The other one is available if you would like to get it. There is an arena event that is going on currently. And of course, there is the raid to take on the Tetrasylphan. Pretty awesome events going on, so this is definitely the week that you want to be playing the game. Cool. That aside, I know you guys are here to see our guests, learn about the main story a little bit. I know those of you out there may have some questions about the main story or the world and that sort of stuff in general, so please leave those in chat. Somebody we have available is going to take a look at them. We might be able to get some answered later on, not 100% guaranteed, but maybe. So leave those in chat. We'll see if we can get them answered here. But without further ado, I think we should dive in and meet our guests here that have been so patient and so quiet, waiting for me to get through all the introductions. So the 3 guests that we have today are Kou Noguchi. He is the SQUARE ENIX Scenario Planner. He's waving right now. We also have Norihisa Iwasaki. He is a SQUARE ENIX Creative Planner. And then finally, we have Saki Mitake. She is part of the community management team for SQUARE ENIX as well. So let's jump in. We're going to do a little bit of an interview with everybody here. And I apologize, I may not be able to answer or see your exact chat messages here. We're all looking at chat, but it's going to be kind of difficult to read all those and respond to those while handling all this other stuff. I apologize. Anyway, without further ado, let's take a look at our guests here. We have a little bit of an interview. So first up, we have Noguchi-san. Hello.
Hello. 私が、リードシナリオプランナーの野口と申します。担当している業務としてはですね、原因戦争のすべてのシナリオのだったり世界観のディレクションをさせていただいたり、ビジョンカードの内容を、全部決めさせてもらったりとか、あとキャラクターのイラストの、内容の指示書を作ったりとか、あとLB の内容を決めたりとか、デモの内容を活用したりとか、目に見える部分で結構いろんな多くのものに関わらせていただいております。
Hello everyone, my name is Kou Noguchi. I'm the lead scenario planner at SQUARE ENIX. So the work that I do in War of the Visions is pretty much everything that relates to the main scenario, as well as setting some of the worldviews and lore, as well as vision card content, instructions on illustrations of the different characters, a limit burst, concept creation, overseeing the cutscenes. We call them demo scenes, but wherever you see those cutscenes with the characters moving around, I would supervise those. So basically, a lot of the things that you see on screen, I get to handle.
Awesome. Great. Thank you for that. Sounds like a pretty intense job. Are there any particular characters that you have that are a favorite of yours from the second part of the game, or the second part of the story, I guess?
野口さんが第2部で気に入っておられるキャラクターを教えていただけますか？
はい、キャラクター全部作ってる人間なので、キャラクターは基本的にみんな大好きなんですけど、2部の中で言うとですね、画像に出していただいたり、グリファードっていうキャラクターは結構私の中ではお気に入りキャラクターになっているんですけど、2部だと、お酒飲んでるシーンとか、あまりシーンとしては多くは出てないんですけど、3部以降、なかなか人間味のあるキャラクター感だったりとか、良い立ち回りをしていくとか、既存のキャラクターとの良い関係性を築いていったりとかっていうところで、作っていて、結構気に入っているキャラクターにはなってます。
So of course, I mentioned I create a lot of the character and the settings behind them. So I love them all. But if we were to pick something from season 2, I would pick Gryfford. I have him represented here on the icon here, but um, true. In the second season, he only shows up in and he's like drunk. But once you get into the third season, you'll get to see more of his character development, see the more human side, the relationships that he built with existing characters. I think he's going to get really interesting. I know writing him in the scenario, I was really fond of him and his character.
Oh, great. Thank you for that. That's very insightful. Sounds like we have a little bit to look forward for regarding that character. So thank you very much for that. Do you have any particular scenes that were memorable to you or that you liked very much?
ちなみに2部の中で一番気に入っているシーン、思い入れのあるシーンなどはありますか？
そうですね。まあ、2部の中は、まあ、結構見どころはたくさんあるんですけど、まあ、ちょっと細かいんですけど、気に入っているシーンとしては、ジェーダンがガンズバックのことを、じゃあ、失礼しました。オベロンがガンズバックのことを切ろうとしているところにジェーダンが止めに入るシーンがあるんですけど、まあ、そのシーンが結構気に入ってはいます。であのシーンで描かれているのって、まあ、オベロンがジェイダンに対してもすごい、進行レベルの、浸水してる状態でありつつも、で、ガンズバックはガンズバックで、ハインドラのために動こうとしている。で、ジェイダンについては、まあ、以前助けてもらったこともあるので、まあ、オベロンの気持ちも理解できるとは言いつつも、まあ、国のために、ランダルとの併合は、やっぱり良しとできない。ジェイダンのことは認めてはいるけど、やっぱり国は守りたいみたいな。でもまたジェイダンに助けられてしまってみたいな、結構いろんなキャラクターの感情が織り交ざっているシーンだと思うので、私としては結構印象的かなと思ってます。
So the scene that I remember most is, and I'm sorry if this is kind of very subtle, but there's a scene where Oberon is furious at Gernsback and he tries to slash at him with a spear, and Jaden comes in and stops them. That's a really good scene because what we're trying to depict here is that Oberon is obsessed with Jaden to the point of worship, but then they're still part of Heindler and they still need to protect the country. And Gernsback is very strong in his sort of love for the country. But then, of course, Jaden had rescued Oberon in the past. And so we all understand that, yes, there is a relationship there. But again, it's very risky to have Heindler merge with Rundall and have them kind of consumed in their forces. So it's very difficult because country-wise, it's a tough choice, but then again, there's that relationship there. So there's so many emotions stirring back and forth in that scene. So that's such a great scene.
Great. Thank you very much. That was a particular nice scene. The voice acting was pretty good in English as well. And for those of you out there that are in chat, whether you're on YouTube or Twitch, please feel free to share your favorite memory from season 2. Or part 2 of the story. Since we're going to be going through that, we would like to see what yours are as well. So let's move on to the next interview that we have here with Iwasaki-san. Hello, thank you very much for joining us today. What work are you in charge of for War Divisions?
Hi everyone. 岩崎です。よろしくお願いします。主な担当内容は、野口さんがメインシナリオに専念できるように、メインシナリオ以外のところですね、を、主に担当してます。例えば、ジョブ名とかアビリティ名とか、称号とかアイテム名とか、そういう細かい、短いワード系のものであったりとか、あと、季節系のイベントだったりとか、あと、傾聴者の耳当てみたいなそういうアイテムだったりとか、そういうアードラが由来じゃないものの、テキストを作ったりとか、あとコラボ関係のテキストとかを作ったりしてます。
So, hello everyone. I am Norihisa Iwasaki. So what I do at War of the Visions is I help Noguchi-san concentrate on working on main scenario. So I do everything that is outside of main scenario. So that goes for job names, title names, item names, anything that involves like short words. And then also I handle seasonal events. And you may be familiar with the Overwatcher's ear guards. Some of the items that don't originate from Ardra, I get to help with text, coming up with text for that. Also, whenever we do collaborations, I would handle creating text for that as well.
Great. Thank you very much for that. And did you have any particularly, or who are your favorite characters in part two?
岩崎さんの好きなキャラクターは
一部からっていう意味で言うと、ここにいるドランドが、個人的にはお気に入りなんですけど、二部で言うと、ジュリアルとリゼットっていう二人組がいて、その二人が割とお気に入りです。本来、もともと二人ともリケロスから脱出してきたみたいな感じの、キャラクターで、ジュリアルの方が上官なんですけど、リケロスを出た瞬間に、リゼットが割と上官であるはずのジュリアルに、なんか、そこは良くないんじゃないみたいなことを普通に咎めたりするみたいな関係性がとても面白くて。で、イベントシナリオとかを見ている人だと、その後結構関係性が変わったりするみたいなところも結構、なんか、同じ会社にいたけど、会社辞めたら私の方が普通に仕事できると思うんで、みたいなことを言う関係性みたいなのがちょっと面白いなと思って見てます。
So if I were to pick a character that had appeared since part one, I would have picked Durando, as shown in my icon here. But if we are talking about characters specifically that make their appearance in part two, I would pick Juriel and Lizette and that duo. They escaped out of Lycaros, and Juriel was her superior, but once they escaped, that relationship kind of changed, and Lizette would kind of chime in and say, hey, I don't think that's good, or she's very honest about her opinions. I think that's very interesting and fun. And some of you players who are familiar with the event scenes, you will see that their relationship shifts even more, and you feel like their positioning has kind of switched almost, and it's a very interesting dynamic. It's like once a couple of people leave their workplace, you realize that the subordinate does a lot more good work.
Indeed, I think that is true. Do you have any memorable scenes from part two?
岩崎さんの思い入れのあるシーンを教えてください。
ですね、カミットとエルシレールの喋ってるシーンは大体好きなんですけど、10章の最後の方まで行くと、カミットが結構おとぎを見せて、エルシレールにちょっと、いいこと言うところがあったりするんですけど、あれ、こいつ意外とただのチャラいやつじゃないんだなっていうのが見えて、とてもお気に入りです。
I would say any interaction with Camillo and Elzarel is my favorite. Towards the end of chapter 10, you start to see Camillo kind of developing his independence almost, and he tells Elzarel he would give her speeches that would be very manly, actually. Like he's made his resolve, and it's very interesting because you think he's this flirt, but he's not just a flirt.
That's true. Everybody likes that dynamic duo. So thank you very much for answering those questions. We are going to move on to Saki-san now, or Mitake-san.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for joining today. Would you like to tell us what work you're in charge of for War of the Visions?
Currently, I'm in charge of community management. So I usually set up policy for community management and create some planning things. And I also create some original posts for our social medias. Until a while ago, I was also in charge of voice recording, English voice recording things as well. So I did casting from the start of part 2. So that's why I'm here today. Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us. And people are noticing your cute cactar there as well.
So, yeah, he's tuning for the stream today too.
Do you have any favorite characters from part 2?
Yes, I like Azrael, as you can see on my screen, and she's cute and funny, and I believe she's strong too. So I like her a lot.
Okay, great. Do you have any favorite scenes from part 2?
Yeah, it's not favorite, but it's kind of memorable scenes. In part 2 is, I think, Ster's conflict in general, because I can't help think about if King Elder had talked to the children about the promise he made with Gilgamesh before. I don't think he still had to suffer that much, and he didn't commit to like a lot of things. So and he was supposed to become a king instead of Montu, but because a lot of things happened, and also he never knew that he was like his father actually thinks about Shitaro should become a king instead of Montu, but he never knew the fact. And also from part 1 to part 2, I think while Monte became a king and bore enough with mastery and trusted by other people, but still is suffered and carried his destiny alone. It's a kind of sad story, but it's kind of memorable to me. This story, I would say.
Indeed, that was a very good part. So yes, thank you very much today. So thank you to our 3 guests for joining. That was just a little bit of an interview, so we can get a little bit of an insight on who they are. Unfortunately, we were going to have another guest on today. And obviously there are more people in charge of the game on the back end that do a lot of translating and writing and a lot of other game work. One of those people is named Andrew, and he is the translation lead. Unfortunately, he was not able to make it on the stream today, but he was kind enough to write us a little bit of a message to all of you out there. So please allow me to read it to you. It might be a little bit long, so apologies for that. But yes, so this is from Andrew, the lead translator for the game. All right, so here we go. Let me dive in. So from Andrew, unfortunately, we weren't able to join you guys for the live stream tonight, but we wanted to express our thanks to everyone for playing the game and joining in on the adventure that is War of the Visions. In over 2 years of the story content, a lot has happened, but it has been exciting to see the various story arcs and threads come together and to see how various event quests tie into the greater storyline. Part 2 of the story gave us a lot more insight into Rundall, who has been painted mainly as antagonists up until now, as well as Heindler and Ovis, both nations that have been mentioned very briefly up until this point. With these nations being added into the mix, we were able to introduce a whole host of new characters such as Oberon, Alaya, and various members of the Six Fangs, and also add more depth to existing ones such as Jaden, Raldor, and more. More is my character here. This was especially exciting for the localization team, as we had been wondering for a while what Oberon's role in the story would be, and we were also quite interested in more as her complicated relationship with Ramada. Logistically, part 2 was a challenge for the localization team, with all the new characters being added to the development, and the development to the story arcs. Each chapter became larger and longer, and we had even more things than usual to keep track of. While this can be difficult and sometimes contributes to all of us going a little crazy at times, it's definitely great to see everything tied together and see the overall story become more focused and driven in general. New characters also means new voice actors to cast, and we were fortunate to be able to add some great talent to our roster yet again. Working with the voice actors and the directors to bring the story of War of the Visions to life has been extremely rewarding, especially for another story content, which has been full of colorful and quirky characters. On the localization side of things, there were a lot of highlights, probably too many to mention, but here are a few things that I personally found quite memorable or enjoyable to work on. First up, The Fall of Kuri in chapters 3 and 4. This whole story arc was full of great elements that were a joy to localize. Cayenne's depressing monologue on life under Kuri's regime, Luarte's revelation about her past, Engelbert putting on the cursed armor, and then the final confrontation with Kuri himself. None of us expected him to turn into a monster that looks like it belongs in a certain survival horror franchise, but seeing Glaciella reveal her unwavering inner Kuri a little when she finished him off was a nice poetic end to that part of the story. And the second one here, the shenanigans and chaos between El Sorel and Camillo. There's a lot of doom and gloom in War of the Visions, so getting a break from that and being able to indulge in some silliness and banter between the two is always really enjoyable. Part 2 of the story also gave us more characters development for this chaotic pair, and although it may have come at a cost of more one-man performances of Camillo's delusions about Machery falling in love with him, we got to enjoy a lot more of El Sorel tormenting Camillo every chance she gets. There are so many more things I could mention. Oberon's betrayal of Jaden, and the battle of the Ice Golem where Engelbert puts on the cursed armor. Am I the only one that wants a cursed armor Engelbert unit? The mysterious Bronwell and Shelva, Mont's increasing mastery of his ancient ring. But for now, I will just say thank you for playing War of the Visions this far, and buckle up for what comes next in the story. Andrew, lead localization on War of the Visions and Zazantan. Okay, thank you for allowing me to get through that, and thank you, Andrew, for writing all that. That was very great. All right, so I'm going to take a drink of water after that one. Allow me to, sorry. Cool. All right, so at this part of the stream, we're actually going to start diving in and sort of reviewing and getting some commentary on some key moments that were from part 2 of the story. We're going to start right at the very beginning when things kind of opened up and started. And yeah, so let me just take a look here. Let me make sure everything's ready. Cool. So first up, we're going to start with the right when you start in part 2 of the story, it starts off, with a cutscene here. So that's what we're going to begin with. So let's take a look on this screen. Turn it up here.
Oh yes, this is the very beginning of part 2.
懐かしいですね、野口さん、今となっては。
そうですね。まあ、ジェイダンというキャラクターで言うと、まあ、一部の頃からイベントシナリオとかで、ハウレットが出てくるイベントシナリオではちょっと、王様としての器が大きいところを見せたりとか、ラルドが出てくるイベントシナリオではちょっと冷酷な一面を見せたりっていうことで、実は丁寧にキャラクターの紹介をしてきたキャラクターで、一部のラスだと次の敵はジェイダンなんじゃないかみたいな風に見せておいてからの、2部からはジェイダンが主人公ですっていうところで、驚かれたプレイヤーの方もいらっしゃるかもしれないんですけど、結構皆さんご好評いただいているというところで、嬉しくは思っております。
Yes, this Jaden fellow, we had him appear in the event scenes from part 1. Scene with Howlett had him show his benevolence as a king, but then the scene with Raldor, you would see a more cold and cruel side of Jaden, and we tried to depict him little by little but thoroughly. But by the time part 1 ended, we were hoping that people would look at him like, oh, is he going to be the enemy of the next part? But once it was revealed in the next part, he is very prominent in the story, almost like a protagonist, and a lot of people were surprised by that. But it seemed it was fairly well received, which was a good thing. I was really happy about that reaction.
あのムービー、そのタイミングで入ってきた、かなり若手のプランナーの子が、コンテ書くとか、制作担当をやるって、自ら立候補してくれて、最初は割と心配だったんですけど、いざ出来上がってみたらものすごいものが出来上がって、みんなで、おすごいじゃんって話になったっていうのは、なんかすごい記憶に思い出されますね、なんかね。
はい。
And when we were creating this sequence, the cinematic, we actually had one of the junior members on the planner team kind of step up and raise his hand to create the storyboards and to develop this scene. And we were a little bit worried because he was so junior, but once we saw the finished product, it was very impressive. So we were really happy with how it came out.
Yeah, it was very good. And I know a lot of global players out there. I know you guys are watching right now, so please agree with me on this. But when the cutscene came out in Japan, I know a lot of global players watched it, and there was a lot of excitement and there was a lot of hype for it.
そうですね。このカットシーン、日本版が最初に公開されましたけれども、それを見たグローバルプレイヤーが結構盛り上がったというのはこちら側でも確認できているので、すごかったと思いますよ。
担当に伝えておきます。ありがとうございます。
ちなみに3部のオープニングムービーもその人が手掛けてくれているので、お楽しみください。
That's good to hear that the global players liked it too. We'll let the person know. He's actually handling the cinematics for part 3, that opening sequence in part 3 as well. So I think you can look forward to that as well.
Oh, that sounds exciting. All right, so we're going to move on now into the very first cutscene that happens after the CG movie, which is, part 2, chapter 1, scene 1, I guess. We're going to watch that a bit and then chat about it. Oh, I think this is actually a recap that's going to play. So we'll let the recap go first and then we'll talk about it.
それをモントが救出したことにより歴史は動き始めた。ホルンとフェネスの連合軍、その圧倒的な力の前にリオニスは壊滅状態に陥る。
今流れてる、あらすじの一部の振り返りみたいなあらすじになると思うんですけど、一部の頃はもう本当に序章も序章といったところで、今回2部が終わって、で、次のインタールードで、いろいろ明かされることがあるんですけど、それが一部に繋がっていたりもするので、一部だと、どうしてもモントがずっと逃げ続けて、最後はリオニス城からクリスタルが出てっていうことで、なかなか主人公が勝つという展開じゃないところで、一部は進んでしまっているというところもあって、二部は、どうしても主人公が勝つパートみたいなのが入れたくて、二部のウェゼットの戦いとか、っていうところは結構意図的に入れるようにしたっていうのはあります。なので、ちょっと一部を読まれていた方では、結構暗めの展開も多かったので、二部だとちょっと、スカッとしてくれたというか、楽しく読んでいただいた方もいるんじゃないかなと思ってます。
So yeah, we just saw the recap of part 1 in that sort of scene, in beginning scene, but we in the second part, we just concluded the second part, and then there's a lot of information that goes into the second part of the story. And then we also had the interlude that connects after the main part of the scenario was finished. And a lot of things are going to be revealed there as well. But you will start to see those threads kind of tie back into what we had established in part 1. Part 1 was like a very introductory portion of the overall story. So you may have seen Mond kind of running away all the time, and towards the end you would see this giant crystal coming out of Leonis, and it was kind of rare to see the protagonist win in any of the scenes. But once the second part began, we intentionally added more scenes where we see triumph. So like the battle with Wezette, that was one of the things that we put in intentionally. And so for those who have been following the story since part one, you may remember a very bleak sort of scenario in part one, but part two, there are more scenes where it's very exhilarating and encouraging.
That is true. There were a lot of bright spots in part two of the story, I think. All right, so let's take a look here at the beginning. Here we go. This is the real beginning of the game here. We're starting with the Ovis flag.
ここで出てくるのは、ご存知の方もいらっしゃると思うんですけど、オイスの、三つ子の王女の一番下の三女のラシーナというキャラクターですね。彼女はちょっと残念ながらここで命を落としてしまうので、残されているのは、シャルゼとルティアルということになるんですけど、この二人がなかなかのキャラクターになってまして、ジェイダンがまともなのは三女のラシーナだけだって言ってるんですけど、まさにその通りの展開が、2部でもあるし、3部でも用意されていたりもしますので、見た目すごく可愛らしいキャラクターなんですが、やってることがだいぶえげつないことをやり始めると思いますので、いろんな意味で楽しみにお待ちいただけたらとは思います。
So you see this one called the princess, quote unquote, but we find out this is one of the triplets, Rashina, the youngest one. And of course, unfortunately, she is struck down and she loses her life there. But we have our remaining two sisters, Shalza and Lucielle. And you may remember Jaden mentioning about how the only decent one was Rashina. And you'll see that throughout part two, and we anticipate more of that happening in part three as well. She has a very pretty face, but Shalza does some really unbelievable things throughout the story. So she's one of the characters you might want to pay attention to.
Yeah, that is definitely true. She has some interesting points later on in the story. Or some interesting moments, I should say.
Like 最初はこのラシーナなのかルティアルなのかって1シーン目だと分からなかったんですけど、野口さんから今ラシーナだというのが判明したなと思います。
Yeah, it was kind of hard to tell. You would imagine it's Lucielle because we're calling her the princess of Ovis, but we, as Noguchi-san mentioned, we find out that it's actually Rashina.
Indeed, it can be a little confusing a little bit later on in the story because they look very similar, but yes. All right, so into the next part here, we're going to be taking a look at this. Looks like we got Jaden here.
ランダルの最初の主要メンバーが登場するシーンですね、ここが。
Oh yes, I see our key characters from Rundall showing up in this.
なんかここでキャスティングをしたときに、キャスティングするときってかなり詳細な設定資料を見ることがあるんですけれど、ラルドがエルシラーのことが、好きでっていうくだりがあって、そんなの全然ニムの中だと現れてないし、なんなら同じ舞台だけど別行動っていうのがすごいあったなと思うんですけれど、どうなんですかね。
そうですね。実はその設定は死んではいないというか。
死んではない。
けど、ラルドは、もともと第一部隊明道っていうところにいた男で、グリファードとも知り合いなんですけど、彼が、じゃあ、煉獄を立ち上げるぞっていう時に、エルシュラをその時に誘ってるんですけど、一応裏設定としてある話なんですけど、 ラルドー的には、それが、まあ、ちょっとしたプロポーズ的な意味合いで誘ったけど、エルシュラには全く通じていなかったっていうのが、実は裏設定としてあったりするので、まあ、いつか、まあ、シナリオ上で、そのあたり描けたらいいかなとは思ってます。で、あと、まあ、この後別行動になるっていうのも、やっぱりエルシュラっていうキャラクターは非常に優秀な、有能なキャラクターだったので、まあ、ランダル城を守るっていう意味合いにおいては、まあ、もちろん、ラルドはもちろん、ジェイランからもすごい信頼の厚い、キャラクターになっているので、ランダル城を守ってもらっていたと。まあ、ただ、ランダル城、偉いことになってしまいますが、別行動になったのはそういう理由があります。
So when I handled this casting in this section with Rundall and those characters, we would provide our voice actors with very detailed descriptions of these characters and their backstory. And I noticed that Raldor has feelings for Elshra in the materials, but I couldn't even tell that in this scene. And it turns out that they start to move separately based on what they have to do in the story. So I was wondering about that part, Noguchi-san, and Noguchi-san said, well, that idea has not gone away, actually. It's all in the back settings or like the backstory, and it hasn't been depicted in the scenario, but Raldor actually belonged to Gryfford's team, Sonos, and they were going to split off, and Raldor was going to start up Crucium, and then he invited Elshra, and to him, that was kind of like a proposal, like a marriage proposal for him to join, for Elshra to join him in battle. But Elshra had no clue. She was completely oblivious. But yeah, I would love to depict that somewhere in the storyline as well. So in terms of them acting separately, is of course, Elshra is a very great she's great in the war and she's very useful. And so she is tasked to protect the Rundall castle. Of course, Jaden trusts her very much as well. But as you can see, a lot of chaos happens at the Rundall castle. But that's the reason why they were moving separately.
Very interesting.
今、イントロで、オイスの人たちと、ハインドラの人たちと、ランダルの人たちと、あと、ラマダとムーアの、再会のシーンが、ちょっと微妙にループで流れてたかなって思います。
And so, yeah, we saw the different members from Ovis and Heindler, and we also saw that sort of awkward re-encounter between Ramada and Moore.
Oh, I have not played that part of the video yet. I was just pausing and waiting.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
ごめんなさい。変なループをしてしまったのは、途中で止めてしまったかもです。Justin, let's continue to play the video. Don't pause.
Okay.
I think we want to just talk over the video.
Okay. I will be quiet then. I will let everybody talk. And you
Yes.
can translate to your heart's content.
Awesome. Thank you.
このシーンは、ルティエルじゃなくて、シャルゼだったっていうのが分かるシーンですね。まあ、シャルゼは非常に、まあ、プライドが高いというか、自分の欲望に忠実なキャラクターだったりするので、まあ、いわゆるヒールという役どころにはなっていきますので、まあ、そこはもう最後まで貫いて描けたらいいなと思ってます。
Oh, yes. We saw earlier the scene with Luciel, and we find out that it's actually Shelza. Shelza is a very prideful woman, and she's very honest to her desires and what she wants. And she's quite a strong character, and I think she will continue being that character, and she's not going to change her stance.
で、次に、まあ、ラマダとムーアのシーンが、まあ、ちょっと流れてましたけど、まあ、2部だともうちょっと戦って、で、まあ、その後は会うことはなかったと思うんですけど、まあ、ムーアの目的としては、まあ、ランダルを滅ぼしてやろうという目的のもと、ハインドラに行ってるんですけど、まあ、2部の最後で、まあ、ああいうことになって、ムーアとしては目的は果たされてしまった。じゃあ、その後どうなるんだっていうのは、3部で結構ちゃんと書いていたりするので、そのあたりもまあ引き続きお楽しみにというところですかね。
And then we see Ramada and Moore making their they meet on the waters. And in part two, they fight briefly and then they don't see each other for the rest of the parts, the season. But Moore's objective, of course, is to destroy Rundall because she's very loyal to Heindler. But as you are aware with what happened at the end of part two with Jaden, her goal has actually been met without her actually doing anything, which kind of leaves her hanging, but we will tie up the loose ends. We do intend on depicting more about Moore, and we will continue to depict her story in part three.
次が、さっきちょっと見ましたけど、リオニスとウェザイトと、ホルンの、部の前半の部分の、動画をちょっと2個用意してきたので、2つちょっと連続で見たいと思います。
Okay, so the next video we have prepared covers Leonis, Wezette, and Hourne coming together. So let's take a look at those.
ウェゼットを、倒すために、生田が意外な人物を助っ人に連れてきたっていうシーンですね。
So in their effort to defeat Wezette, we had brought in a very strong force, and there he is.
まあ、実はビジョンカードでもちょっと描いていたり。
あ、そうですね。
はい。生田が、ムラと戦った後に、リオニスが、ウェゼットの戦いで負けてしまうような星を見てしまったと。モントの命が、なくなってしまうみたいなのを見てしまったから、どうにかしないといけないっていうところで、ジェイダンを頼ってっていう、まさかの行動を取るんですけど、彼女にしてみれば、星に導かれて、星から出た答えに抗うために、彼女は動いた。で、結果、星の予言を変えてしまったっていう、かなりのファインプレーをしているので、ラマダいなかったら多分モントたちはみんな死んじゃってると思います。
なるほど。なるほど。
And Jaden here, at this time, he was only mentioned in a vision card, but as you can see, Ramada brought him into the battle because she saw in the stars, after she had fought with Moore, that that Leonis might lose and Mont might lose his life, and Ramada wanted to do something about it. So she brought Jaden into the battlefield, and it was her way of kind of fighting the destinies that was depicted in that she saw in the stars. And as a result, they were able to succeed, and she was able to sort of change what the stars had told her. So I think that was a great sort of fine play, so to speak. And had she not come in with Jaden, Mont would have probably lost that battle with Wezette.
で、次のシーンが、クーリを、徐々にいろんな方面から追い詰めていく人たちが出てきて、そして内部のサージスがまず、虎視眈々と狙っていたクーリの首をクイテが背後を狙うっていうシーンですね。
We see Corey here. Oh, sorry. We see Corey and Sergius, and as you can see, he's been waiting for this chance, and he's going to attack Corey from behind.
サージスはずっと耐えに耐えている。このチャンスをつかむために、バジムとか、かつて仲間だった人たちをも殺してでもこの時のチャンスを狙ってずっとクーリに仕えていた、クーリに信用されるためにそばにいたっていう、こう積もったものがここで一気に出していくっていうシーンになっています。はい。
Yes, this scene, I think Sergius had been really bearing the humiliation and just being under the tyranny of Corey, and he was waiting for this chance, and his allies like Vajimu was also fell victim to Corey's tyranny, and he just pretended to be Kuri's loyal servant, and he was just waiting for this moment. And so when he impaled him with his spear, I think it was just letting all of that anger and hate that he had buried in him and just unleashed it upon Kuri.
ですね。この後、最後に、グラセラの最後の一振りで、クリを倒すことになると思うんですけれど、結構ずっとこの一部から続いてた、本当の、戦いの一つの、終止符が、このウェゼとオイス、すいません、ウェゼと、リオニス、ホルンの間で、終わったのかなっていう感じですね。で、その次がやっぱパート2は、なんといっても、ハインドラと、ランダルとオイスとの戦いがメインになってきて、どんどんこの後になっていくと、彼らの中でも、ランダルとハインドラの中でも一枚岩になっていかない雰囲気、ことがあったりだとか、なんかそういうので、物語が、重層的になっていくっていうのが一つの、パート2の見どころだったのかなっていうふうに思っています。で、次がそのハインドラと、オイスと、ランダルのこの3つの国の物語のシーンを3つ持ってきているので、ちょっと続けて見れればと思います。
Yes, the scene with Kuri. Of course, Glaciella was the one who dealt the final blow with her sword, but I feel like that was a sort of closure to part of the story that continued from part 1. And the battle between Ovis, Wezette, Leonis, and Hourne had kind of met a certain conclusion. And with part 2 being Heindler and Rundall versus Ovis, and then Heindler and Rundall also kind of fight in between each other as well, but it becomes so complex story-wise, and there's so many interesting parts to see. So yeah, next up we want to talk about some of the footage that we brought for Heindler, Ovis, and Heindler, Ovis, and Rundall scenes.
先ほど、私が好きなシーンとして挙げていただいたシーンかと思うんですけど、ちょっとさっきコメントでもちらっと見かけたんですけど、そのリケロスに捕まってる時とか、捕まった経緯とかのお話ないのかっていうコメントあったんですけど、実はもう作ってあります。作ってはあるけど、いつリリースされるかわかんない。
いいんですか、それ。
状態で。はい。お話自体はあるけれどもっていうところであるので、
お披露目できればいいですね。
はい。なので、どういう経緯でガンズバックが救われてとか、リケロスがどうなったのかみたいな、じゃあその時実は何があったのかみたいなところまで、実はちゃんと決まっているお話があったりするので、この時、ガンズバックが助けられたりして、その時も助けられたり、でもやっぱりハインドラのためにというか、国のためにオイスの方がいいんじゃないかみたいな葛藤があったりするので、私からするとそういうところも全部込み込みで分かってしまってるから思い入れがあるシーンになっているのかもしれません。
Yes, this is the scene that we mentioned was Noguchi-san's favorite scene. But yeah, I noticed in the comments, somebody mentioned, so do we get to find out how they got captured by Lycoros? You see, the story has been written. It's just a matter of when is an appropriate time to incorporate it into the game is the question, which seems to have made Iwasaki-san a little bit nervous. But we have the story. We have the story. It's just we're trying to find an opportune time to incorporate it into the game. But Gernsback also has a history with being saved by Jaden in the past. But again, he has a very loyal, he has his loyalty towards Heindler. And so considering the future of Heindler, they feel that maybe actually parting ways with Rundall might be the better option. And just there's so much emotion behind it. So I think that is probably what Noguchi-san had in mind as he was writing like the scene, and then seeing or like knowing the backstory of it made it even more emotional for him.
次は、ランダル城がどんどん、アライアとゴーガの仕業によって内部から崩壊していくシーンの、まあ、一つの、アイコニックなシーンを持ってきました。
The next scene is pretty iconic too, where Alaya and Gryfford goes through and or I'm sorry, before Alaya meets Gryfford, she works with the Goga shinobi to kind of destroy Rundall Castle from the inside and kind of infiltrated them.
あなたがグリファードね。さて、どうだったかな。
シナリオと直接関係ないかもしれないんですけど、今結構キャラクターがかなり動いたりとか、カメラが寄ったりとかできるようになったのって意外と最近の話で、ゲームをリリースした直後はかなり引きの絵しか作れなかったんですよね。ただ、開発してくださっているグミさんの技術力というか、ツールの使いこなしがどんどん上手くなっていって、結構寄ったりするシーンが作れるようになったっていう。
知ってるし、しかもカメラも回ったりとか、かなり。
はい。もともと引きの絵しか、ゲーム画面と同じような引きの絵しか作れなかったんですけど、だんだんグミさんの技術力が上がっていって、ダイナミックなシーンが作れるようになって、グミさんの実力もとっても上がってきてるなっていう感じますね、ここまで来ると。
そうですね、戦闘シーンとかも飛んでくるのが、メルニアのシーンとか、すごいかっこいいのがいっぱいあったなと思う。
ああいうの多分作るの結構、カロリーが作るの結構大変らしいんですけど、グミさんのもう結構ノリで作ってくれてとってもありがたいです。
なるほど。
But yeah, you may have noticed the it's not related directly to the script itself, but you notice the camera or the characters moving around more fluidly and the camera kind of zooming in on some of these characters. It's actually quite recent that we were able to incorporate that. When we first released the game, we were unable to do it, but our development partner, Gumi, has gleaned knowledge and become more skilled in the tools that they have on hand, and they've just become so much more versatile in how they can show the story. So you can see that the camera kind of moves around. Before, previously, we would only be able to see like a zoomed out image of like the overall picture, but now we can do something more dynamic. So Saki was mentioning about how she loved the scene where Melnia kind of jumps into the battle scene. That was actually quite complicated for Gumi to make, but they're so great. They were really excited to make that scene, and yeah, I think we were able to do something really dynamic.
なんかランダルの中も大変なんですけれど、一枚岩で唯一あったはずの、オベロンとジェイダンの関係も、次の、見せるシーンで、サーダリーが、ちょっと隙を見て、心に入ってくるっていうのがあって、どんどんその、ハインドラとランダルが、なかなか、一緒に一枚岩で行動できないっていうのが、さらに上の方でも起きてるっていうのが、ちょっと印象的だったので、起きてきています。
And then another scene would be, of course, within the walls of Rundall Castle, you saw the chaos that was happening, but also the leaders of those two countries, Oberon and Jaden, kind of get shaky as well. Subtly approaches Oberon and kind of creeps into Oberon's heart, so to speak, and kind of shakes things up, and you notice that they're not as synchronized anymore.
なんかシュテルほどオベロンって全然サーダリーのコマのようには動いてないように見えるんですけれど、今後なんかオベロンとサーダリーの関係って3部の中でどんどん近づいていくのかどうなのかっていうのをちょっとなんかヒントとかもらえると嬉しいなって思います。
ヒントっていうか答えになりそうな。
答えになりそうか。じゃあシークレットにしと
そうですね。サーダリーからすると、オベロンのことはものすごいよく知ってたんですよ。
確かに。インタールームとか見ると。
そうです。2部の後のインタールームですかね、わかるんですけど、だからこそ、オベロンの力っていうものを、サーダリはよく理解していたから、ジェイダンとは、 こう、別れさせるような、仲違いさせるような動きを、あえてしておきたかったっていうのはあります。さらにの目的としては、やっぱりアウドラの各地からクリスタルを採掘しようっていう動きをしているので、今、リオニスのクリスタルにもいろんな線が繋がっていると思うんですけど、やっぱりクリスタルから抽出するマルクを集めていたサーダリという目的にジェイダンは非常に邪魔な存在だったので、ここでどうしても排除しておきたかったっていうのが今回のゲイルハイランド戦役における大きな理由の一つになるかと思います。
なるほど。なんか2部の中でまだランダルがどうして戦争を終わらせるための戦いっていうのを目標に掲げて戦っているのかっていうのがはっきりはわからなかったのと、あとどうしてサーダリーの目論見のようなものをある意味ジェイダンはある意味知ってるような動きをしているのかっていうのがすごく今後の展開として楽しみで知りたい部分だなと思ってるので楽しみです。
And so this Sadali is a very tricky person. You may not have seen him moving around too much, but then his relationship with Oberon is something that might be very curious, at least for Saki's mind. She was curious to get any sort of hints to how they would be depicted in part 3, and Noguchi-san was afraid that he might provide like the answer flat out, so we're going to try to blur it a little bit. But Sadali knows a lot about Oberon, first of all. If you've seen the interludes that came after part 2, and that's why Sadali wants to sort of get him separated, get Oberon separated with Jaden, because he really understands the power that he holds. And of course, Sadali's objective is to get all of the crystals that are spread throughout Ardra. And you've already seen Leonis with his sort of pipes kind of connected to it, kind of extracting the magic out of them. And so Sadali's plans is to do that. And Jaden was going to be very much in his way. And so Sadali really needed to get rid of Jaden. And I think that was a really key element of this whole Gale Highland War. And yeah, we were very curious about Rundall had this motto of doing this war to end the war. But Sadali also had his objectives, and it felt as if though Jaden may have had an inkling of what Sadali is going to do or what he wanted. But yeah, we're probably going to see more of that being explored in part 3.
で、次のシーンがですね、行く前にクイズをいくつか用意してきていると思うので、クイズコーナーかなと思います。
Okay, so before we move into our next video, we would like to do our quiz, a little bit of a trivia, World of Vision trivia.
Indeed. So we set up a little bit of a quiz here. I mentioned earlier in the stream that we would be getting some rewards for everybody, assuming that we can get the questions answered correctly. So we will go ahead and jump into that right now. So we will be doing the questions in Twitch. We're not going to be doing them in YouTube, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's correct.
Okay, yep. So we'll be doing the questions on Twitch. So if you're on Twitch, be sure to answer the questions. Everybody on YouTube, I guess maybe you could just type the answer in chat or go to Twitch so you can answer the questions. So get ready. We're going to be jumping into it here. Let's take a look. So we have our first question here. Which country did Camillo serve before Rundall? Just allow that a minute to pop up. And you guys can put your answers in the chat. So this was mentioned. This isn't something that you need. This is not like prior knowledge that you need from part 1. This was definitely mentioned a few times in the part 2 story. Okay, yep, you guys can see it at the top of the screen there. So make your selection. Don't type it in chat. Just make your selection there at the top. They'll always put it in chat. That's okay.
みんなよくご存知。
It seems everybody is very confident with their answers.
Yeah, so for if we get this one correct, this is going to be for 3 of the Far Plains Archives keys. That's the first question answer, or that's the first answer that we have the reward for the first correct answer. Cool. So, all right. So we got the answer here in Twitch chat, and let's see if this is correct. Dun, da, da, da. It is correct. Congratulations, everybody. That was the correct answer. We had 97% of people select the correct one. Good job. All right. Now we'll go on to the second question here. Which of the following is the name given to the child born to Dario and Venera? Is it Daria, Dario the Second, or is it unknown?
これは多分1回しかメインシナリオには出てないんじゃないかなと、多分。
This might have only shown up once in the main scenario.
Yeah, it was a little bit towards, I think maybe it was like chapter 6, maybe the name showed up. Chapter 7, maybe, around there.
Junior.
But yes.
ダリオジュニア。
Cool. So your answer on Twitch, if you could, in the poll selection there at the top. Put your answer in.
ハイン・レインバッハ3世。
So, I'm Reinbach the Third. That sounds like a cool name.
All right, here. Oh, so it just ended. Looks like.
さすが。
Hey, good job, y'all.
Oh, that wasn't there yet. So the correct answer is number 1. Yes, so everybody got it correct. And that is for 20 energy restore potions large. So we've got 2 out of 2 so far. Congratulations. So for the third question here is, who does not have the ancient ring or ancient relic, I think it's also referred to, at the beginning of part 2, chapter 1? Is it Oberon, Jaden, or Mont?
トリッキーなのが、チャプター1についての質問で、チャプター10時点での、じゃない。
それでね、いろいろあったり、いろいろありますからね、チャプター2の間にね、パート2の中でね。
そうですね。
Yes, you got to remember this is at the beginning of part 2. I know throughout the story of part 2 a lot of things happen, but this is at the very, very beginning, chapter 1 of part 2.
そうだね、あなたは持ってないと思いますね、
Number 4, me. Yeah, probably not. I'm sorry.
あんまりたくさんはないんでね。
Yeah, I'm afraid we don't have very many for it to go around.
コメントの質問で来てましたけど、指輪は全部で3つです。
そうですね、3つ。
はい。
Oh, yes, there was a question in the comments asking about how many rings are in existence, and there are 3.
Oh. So you can't have one for each finger, I guess.
各指に1個つけようと思ってたのに。
1つは加えてください。
Maybe we will
さすがですね、皆さん。
add.
All right, so looks like everybody answered Oberon here. Let's go ahead and check the answer. That is correct. Oberon did not have the ancient ring at the beginning of chapter 2, although he did acquire 1 or maybe 2 of them later on. All right, so congratulations. We got 3 out of 3 correct. We had another one lined up, but we're not going to need to go through that because you got all 3 of them correct. So congratulations. That third one was for 100 event skip tickets. So yes, good job, everybody.
すごい、皆さんすごいです。
そうですね。
Yeah, everybody is very knowledgeable. Very good.
次はあれですね。クリスタル教会だとか、物語を本当に進めていく進んでいく上でわからないところがまだまだたくさんあると思うんですけれど、それを紐解いてくれる役割をしてくれていたのが、シュテルの、旅だったりだとか、あと新しいメンバーというか、キャラクターでブロンビルとシェルバが出てきて、クリスタル教会のとはみたいなのが他の視点から知ることができたのがパート2の一つの見どころだったかなと思います。で、二つ、L での、日記を読んで、初めて読むシュテルのシーンと、あとはブロンビルとシェルバーの会話のシーンをちょっとご覧いただければなと思います。
Of course. So the next part that we'd like to watch is, of course, there may be a lot of unknowns in the story right now, and that includes the journey of Stern, and we have some new characters that are involved with the Crystal Sanctum, Bronwell and her subordinate Shelva, and so we brought a couple of footage for that section. You see now Stern is reading Elde's diary.
なんか、その、モントとしてるに言うってことはできないのかもしれ、それでまた亀裂が生まれるから言わないっていう選択をしたのかもしれないんですけど、エルでは。なんか、すごく悲しい、せっかく仲のいい家族だったと少なくとも思うので、ここの知ったときは、そうかって思ったな。
そうですね。リオニスに指輪を授けるっていうことになったときに、アムネリスの、信託によると、双子が生まれたら、王位継承者が2人いた場合は、どちらかを排除しないといけないっていうのは、アムネリスという謎の女性、田中の時言ってたの、名前言ってしまいました。信託によるものだったので、ギルガメッシュとしては、それを守らないと、リオニスが間違いなく、戦地になってしまって、でクリスタルが浮上してしまうのが確定するから、それは避けたかったっていうところから、そういうことにはなっていて、で、エルデとしてみればもう先々代とか、それからずっと伝えられてきたことだったので、要は、神との約束を疑えてしまったら、リオニスという国は滅亡してしまうだろうとか、指輪が取られてしまったら、今度は列強の餌食になってしまうと。リオニス自体は大きい国じゃないんだ。っていうのもあって、やっぱりエルでは、王として、国を守る判断をするのか、やっぱり親として子供を守りたいのか、どっちなんだっていうのを相当苦悩してきたキャラクターだったりして、で、結果的にエルでは、ちゃんと国を守りながら、やっぱり子供もどうしても捨てきれないっていうことで、モンとウェズエットの方に養子に出してみたいなことを、それでも、ギルガメッシュが許さないんだったら、自分も国を捨ててモントと一緒にウェゼットに行って、最後まで戦うぞ。自分の子供を守るために。っていう決断をエルでは下しているので、実は、国を残しつつ、親としてもやっぱり捨てきれない感情があったと。で、それ、話しちゃえば、早いかもしれないんですけど、してると、モントの性格から言ったら、それを話してしまったら、自分が原因でどっちかが犠牲になってしまうっていうのは絶対受け入れられない二人だと思うので、そうなっちゃったら、神に対して戦いを挑んでしまうと。そうなったら結局、モントとしても、どうなるかわかんない。やっぱ神に対する恐れっていうものはあったと思うので、だからエルでは言いたくても言えなかった。もともと国を守りたかったから言えなかったっていうのが、彼の、心の中の葛藤だったのかなと思います。
なるほど。
Yeah, with this scene, of course, we find out that Stern was supposed to be the chosen one, but of course, I'm sure it would have been quicker for Elda to explain it to his sons, but I think we're worried about like their personalities, not being able to accept the fact that one of them had to be sacrificed, and Elda was very torn about having to choose one of his sons to be sacrificed, and they're such a wonderful, like, close family. But yeah, just finding out um and considering what is best for Leonis, and also considering what's best for his family, it was such a difficult decision. But according to Amnelis, I'm sorry, I already mentioned her name, but we'll find out who she is. But she had this sort of prophecy that Leonis had to decide. They only could have one successor to the throne, or else the crystal would have come out from its slumber and destroyed the country. And of course, Elda was familiar with the lore because it had been sort of passed down generation to generation, and it's the kingdom's promise to its people. And if the ring was to be taken away from them, then they would be destroyed by the forces around them. So again, he was probably very torn between wanting to protect his kingdom versus protecting his own children. But he still didn't want to give up on his two sons. So he tried different ideas, like trying to send off Mont to wed into Wezette, and hoping that that would appease Gilgamesh and his decree on the kingdom of Leonis. If Gilgamesh would not allow for that to happen, then yeah, Elde was prepared to go into Wezette to protect Leonis. And again, it might have been quicker to just disclose it to them all, but I think both sons would not be able to live with the fact that because they lived, that if neither one of them are sacrificed, the kingdom would be destroyed. So I think that's but by doing so, we're now fighting against the gods. And so I think that's why Elda was not able to disclose the truth to Stern.
Makes sense.
Interesting. I also like, one thing I like about this scene is how Stern is having probably one of the most important moments of his life, and he's deep in thought reading the diary, and then monsters show up and inconvenience him for a moment or two. All right, so let's move on to the next part of the video here.
ここで登場するブロンルとシェルバなんですけど、クリスタル教会の人たちとは、同じクリスタル教会でありつつ、衣装がちょっと違うんですよ。元々のクリスタル教、ブロンルたちが渡ってきた、教皇様がいるところっていうのは、実は衣装に黒い色が入った衣装になっていて、で、サーダリーは真っ白。ささやきとか、純白の親衛隊って言われている人たちも真っ白。っていうのはちょっとその、意図的なところがあったりするので、もともと教皇庁から来た人たちっていうのは、の教えはちゃんとこう、黒い部分というか、人として生きる上での、いろんなことを説いている教ではあるけど、サーダリーたちが説いているっていうのは、ちょっと教えを変えて、クリスタルを使った奇跡を見せたりとか、本当にこう、いいところしか語っていないみたいな、より神聖なものとして、人々を、うまく操るために、良い教えだけを説いているから真っ白なのかなっていう、実はちょっと裏設定があったりはします。
デザイン指示書に衣装をちょっと変えてくださいみたいな話をしてたんですか？
しました。
そうなんですね。
はい。
So you may notice with Bronwell and Shelva's outfits, they are more black compared to Sottili's, which is more primarily white. Of course, they're both they're all from what we describe as Crystal Sanctum, but Bronwell and Shelva come from Sanctum Curia. So the people from Sanctum Curia tend to have the outfits that Bronwell and Shelva wear with the black. Now, there's a sort of hidden lore behind the color scheme of their outfits, with Sotiles and his sort of the women that he have around him all wearing all white kind of relates to how he only preaches the good parts, or like the parts that people want to hear about the crystal faith, because he wants to control them. And so, yeah, we actually had specific instructions, as Iwasaki-san mentioned, that made the look of their outfits a little slightly different.
まだサーダリーの物語はインタールードでようやくどんどん分かってくるかなと思うので、グローバル版のプレイヤーさんはこれからサーダリーのお話をよく知ることになるかなと思いますが、次のシーンは2部の、ちょっとコミカルなシーンを用意しています。まあ、理由は2部でもうどんどん一部で消化不良だった部分をかなりの部分、こういうことかっていうのが分かって、で、かなりの物語の壮大な部分を味わうことができたっていうのが2部だったと思うんですけど、それプラス、それと反対のダイナミックで、デックスで、コミカルなシーンもだいぶ増えて、それが、すごく2部を、豊かにしてたかなと思います。特にカミドとかのエルシレールとか、あと、まあ、レイシスとサリアのコンビとか、いたかなと思うので、まず1個だけ今日は持ってきてます。
Yes, the story of Sadali and his sort of history will be revealed through the interlude stories. So, those playing the global version, I hope you enjoyed the story from there. Now, we'd like to show some comical scenes from part 2. There was a lot of content to get through and to delve into and enjoy, but also there's a lot of like levity in some of the dynamic that we have. It's kind of like a juxtapose almost, but that made part 2 very rich in its storytelling. As mentioned, Camillo and El Sorel's banter was fun. Again, and Rachel's and Salier's banter was also fun.
まあ、この2人、カミッドとエルシレールでいうと、まあ、シナリオ以外でもいろんなところでこの2人のやりとりっていうのは書かせていただいてるんですけど、この2人のやりとりは、はっきり言って全然迷わないというか、すぐ書けちゃうんですよ。キャラクターがもう完全に出来上がってるから、もう勝手に喋ってくれるみたいなレベルで、作れてしまっていたりするんですけど、まあ、もともとカミッドってキャラクターって、まあ、そんなに活躍する予定はなくて。
そうですね。
なんなら早く退場するぐらいの予定ではあったんですけど。
なので、日本版の声優さんも結構若手の人だったりしてたんですけど、意外とシナリオの中で大活躍しちゃったんで、声優さんの仕事がとっても増えたっていう。
エルシレールがいてこそのカミットみたいな。
そうですね。
エルシレールのおかげでカミットは、まあ、活躍するポジションに来れてるのかなっていうのは実はあったりします。結構キャラクターを、活かして、描いていると、こう、思いもしない生き方をしてくるキャラクターってやっぱりたくさんいるので、オルドアとかもそうなんですけど、そういったところもやっぱりシナリオを作ってて面白い部分ではあると思います。
なんか悲しいで言うと、モントが全然、塩対応っていうか、普通のフラットな感じで受け入れて、モントらしいなって思って見てました。すいません。
確かに。
I'm sorry.
どうぞどうぞ。
So for Camillo and El Zorel, of course, it's just, their characters are so like developed that, and whenever I'm writing their banter, I don't like stop. Like I feel like the scenario almost writes itself because they already have like their motivation and, they move on their own almost. So, with Camillo, it's very interesting because we didn't really have plans at first for him to be part of the scenarios in such a major way. So, as Iwasaki-san mentioned, the voice actor for the Japanese version was somebody who's rather up and coming and new to the scene. But because Elsarel, I think, helped in bringing him and letting him shine throughout the main scenario, we had more work for our voice actor to do. But yeah, it's interesting when we bring out our characters and we try to bring out their personalities. You never know how they start to shine on their own. I think Oldora is also another character that developed along the story. But yeah, it's very interesting to see that. But Saki was mentioning it's really funny to watch like Camillo and Elsarel kind of go on their banter, and then Mont is just very salty and just very plain.
他にはまだまだいっぱいコミカルなシーンで楽しいところ、例えばリンセツとサリアのちょっと姉妹の喧嘩みたいにどんどんなってきて、アドラードよりもあの二人を見る機会の方がみたいなところとかは楽しかったです。
But yeah, so many more fun scenes. I love the scenes with Rachel and Celia, and the sister-in-laws, so to speak, fighting with each other. I think we see more of those two ladies than Salia's brother Adelard.
Yes,
なんて
indeed.
ビジョンカードになっちゃったぐらいですからね。
Yes, we've created a vision card because of that.
Oh, yeah.
次が、最後の、フィナーレの部分の動画を2つ準備していまして、1つはもう4章の、最後のところまで2章進んでいる前提で、ちょっと本当にネタバレが含まれるシーンになっちゃうんですけれど、オベランとランダル、ジェイダンの、2人の会話と、あと最後の、本当に一番最後のシーンを、2つ続けて見れればと思います。
Okay, so the last set of videos are going to be the finale, basically. So this is with the understanding that everybody is caught up to part 2, chapter 10, scene 4, and it is some of the scenes with Oberon, with Jaden, and then the Leonis, Crystal.
コメントの中でも、要は、オベロンがジェイダンを裏切るということは、もう脚本としてずっと決まってたのかっていう質問があったんですけど、これもう決まってました。ファーストシーズン、要は日本版をリリースする前から、セカンドシーズンの終わりがこうなることはもう完全に決まってたんですよ。で、ここまでじゃあどう持ってくるか、どういう感情でいくのかっていうところでは非常にこう悩んだというか、チーム内でも何度も話し合って、今回こういう、形になりました。その中で、ボツになった案で言うと、指輪を手に入れて野望を抱いてしまったオベロンがジェイダンを殺すみたいな、そういうのとかも全部ボツにしていって、行き着いた先がこれとジェイダンへの、異常なまでの、狂信っぷりっていうのを発揮した結果っていうところで、こういうことになってしまったんですけど、それはもう3部にどうしていくかっていうところまで全部決めた上で、こういう展開にさせていただいたというところにはなっておりますので、コメントの中でもジェイダン生きてるのかどうなのかっていうのがあったんですけど、3部の冒頭を見ていただければその辺はわかるかなと思いますので、ちょっとジェイダンファンにはなかなか辛いシーンかなと、僕もモーキャップとか立ち会ったり、この時間で書いてる時もちょっと辛かったんですけど、もうちょっとお待ちいただければいろいろわかると思います。
So we noticed a comment in the comments. There was a question about when Oberon betrays Jaden, and was it always decided that Oberon was going to kill Jade or stab, betray Jaden. But to answer your question, yes, that was determined from the beginning. We actually, before the Japanese version was released, we already had like a general plan of how we were going to close off that second season or part two. The question was, how do we take it to that conclusion? What kind of emotion goes behind that? And that's where the team was very torn, and we had to think really long and hard about how do we depict the process of getting to that point. Some of the ideas that were scrapped for the lead up to the betrayal was Oberon gets a hold of one of the ancient rings, and his sort of ambition takes a hold of him, and then so he decides to betray Jaden. But we scrapped that idea, and we chose the fact that Oberon was so obsessed with Jaden to the point of worshipping, and just getting to the point where like, you are not the Jaden that I know and believed in, and so that's why he attacks him. And we had that drawn out, and then we also looked into how that's going to tie into part 3, and so that's how the story played out. Now, it was a very difficult scene if you're a Jaden fan. There were some comments asking if Jaden was actually still alive or not. I think you will find out once part 3 or season 3 starts. But again, it was a very difficult scene to depict. I know Noguchi-san was saying that as he was writing the basic plot or the content for it, he was also kind of struggling to get through it. But if you wait it out and see what happens in part 3, I think more will be revealed.
このシーンはやっぱりこの、天意と呼ばれる存在なんですけど、この胸に埋まって、なんか人らしきものが埋まっているのが見えると思うんですけど、それが誰なのかとか、どういった経緯でそうなっていったのかっていうのは、次のインタールードで全部わかりますので、そのあたりはちょっとお楽しみいただければと思います。ちょっとついに、クリスタルの中から出てしまった存在になるんですけど、こいつがどういうやつなのかっていうのも全部インタールードで書かれているので、インタールードを読んでいただければ、じゃあ第1部の時サーダリーこう動いてたのはそういう理由だったのかっていうのはやっぱり全部繋がるようになってますので、ちょうど2部の終わりがね、わけのわからんこんなのが蘇って、ジェイダンがあんなことになってどうなってるんだっていうところで、バッサリ一度カットして、この世界の成り立ちみたいなところから、始めて、で、一応ストーリー的には3部で、一区切りをつけたいと思っているので、その最終章に、全部突入していくぞっていうために、2部の終わりからインタールードを経由しての3部っていうのは、そういう計算のもとに実はお話は組み立てていったりしております。
And you see this large figure that comes out, and you notice that there's a shadow of sorts that might look like a person inside. That will be revealed in the interlude story. So we hope that you look forward to that. And throughout the interlude, you will see more about Sadali and his motivations and what led him to become the way he is in parts 1 and part 2. So you will see the connections throughout once you go through the interlude. So with part 2 ending on such a chaotic note with Rundall falling apart, Oberon betraying Jaden, and just you don't know what's going on at the end of part 2, and then you go through the interlude and you find out how the land of Ardra kind of came about, and then comes the third part, and in terms of the overarching story, the third part is going to be like the final sort of section of the story. So we've planned out our script and the scenario based on the fact that it's going to be like a 3-parter and the story plays out. So it's going to be like the climax and the culmination in part 3.
インタールードも、全然知らなかった部分とかたくさん出てくるので、すごく楽しみ。グローバル版の皆さんの反応すごい楽しみだなと思います。で、本編自体の準備してきたのはこれが最後で、皆さんからコメントいっぱい来てると思うので、今からちょっと何個か岩崎さんと野口さんにピックアップしてお答えをするタイムに入れればなと思います。
Yeah, for sure. With the interlude, we're going to find out a lot of things that is being revealed for the first time. So we are hoping that the global version players will enjoy the interlude story as well. Now, we've gone through all of the videos that we wanted to show. I know we've gotten a lot of questions and comments from in the chat, so we would like to have Iwasaki-san and Noguchi-san answer some of those questions.
シナリオの中身については野口さんからいくつか拾ってコメントされていたと思うので、僕から一つだけ言えるやつは、ベリタス・オブ・ライト、日本語版で言うと後期のベリアス以外のベリアスってどうなんですかっていう話が確かあったと思うんですけど、出るといいですねって僕も思ってます。
So I know
いいですねって僕も思ってます。
So I know there's a lot of anything related to the scenario, I'm going to leave it up to Noguchi-san to comment. So if I were to pick just one question out of the comments, somebody mentioned about, will we see more Veritas? I know we saw the Veritas of Light show up, but will there be more of those? And what I can say is I'm hoping that they would appear too. To which Noguchi-san is like, well, but that's not a real response. But yes, we're hoping that they will make more appearances. Yes.
それで言うと、後期のベリアスを召喚するシーンがあったけど、それって意図的なんですかっていう質問があったと思うんですけど、意図的ですと。ジェイダンは後期を知っていたんですっていうことです。
ギルガメッシュが知っててビビるやつを呼ぼうって、みたいな、そんな話でしたよね、確かね。
ギルガメッシュとの関係性をジェイダンは多分知らないと思うんですけど、後期のベリアスっていうすごい強い存在がいるっていうことは、ジェイダンは実はある、ことをきっかけに知ることになってるんですけど、それは後々というか、重ねてくるとは思いますので、ジェイダンが使えるビジョンの中では多分一番強いのが後期のベリアスだったっていう、そういう解釈でいいのかなと思います。
So was it intentional to have the Veritas of Light being summoned? And to answer that, yes, it was intentional. We wanted to have something that Gilgamesh would see and be startled or like surprised about it. And so Jaden is familiar with the Veritas, actually. We don't go into details into it until later, but yeah, he does know of the Veritas of Light. And it just so happened that the powers of his ancient ring that he has is summoning the Veritas.
あと、そうですね。アライアとジェイダンって、まだ結婚してないけど、アライアがランダル姓だよねっていう質問が、実は同じ質問は日本版の方でももらったりしてるんですけど、なんていうかちょっと仕組み上、名前って一つしか付けれないっていうことがあって、アライアについては、ハインドではなくランダルにしたっていうのは、2部の最後で、アライアが自分間違ってたのかみたいな、グリファードに気づかされるようなシーンがあると思うんですけど、要はその後、アライアが最終的にどう動いていくのかっていうところ、ちょっとある意味軽いネタバレにはなってしまっているんですけど、アライアとしてはやっぱりランダル姓の方で、活躍してってくれるというふうに思っていただいていいんじゃないかなと思います。だからランダル姓になってますよっていうことです。
There was another question about Alaya and Jaden's relationship. They haven't technically had their wedding yet, but she already has the name Alaya Rundall. First of all, based on how the system is, we're unable to have them I'm sorry, because of the how it's set up, yeah, she's not allowed to have a second name. But there is a part of the story towards the end of part two where Alaya is sort of um she finds out like what or no, she makes her resolve. Like she sets her resolve on how she wants to proceed, and so it kind of spoils what she's going to do moving forward. But yes, she's going to be like very actively involved in the kingdom of Rundall. So that's why her last name is already that of Rundall's.
なんか最後に自分から一個自分から質問というかなんですけど、なんか3部のトレーラーが発表されたときに、日本版で、まだ海外版は当然発表されてないんですけれど、シュテルの服装というか格好が、ギルガメッシュに似ているっていうのが、ちょっとグローバル版のコミュニティでも話題になっていて、相当先取り情報なんですけれど、ここについてのちょっとヒントとかを、言えなかったら言えないでもいいんですけれど、コメントをもらえると、ってなるかなと思います。
どうなんですか、野口さん。
ヒントじゃなくて答えですよね。
答えになっちゃうか。またしても。
そうですね。言えるところで言うと、ご存知の方はもしかしたらいらっしゃるかもしれないんですけど、3部の冒頭でわかるところにはなってるんですけど、一応2部の終わりのところまでだと、シュテルって、ギルガメッシュが、心に救う闇みたいなものを、根絶するために、強い光の力を与えて、シュテルはずっと、眠り続けているというか、己の中の闇と戦ってるみたいな、そんな状態で闇を乗り越えられるかどうなのかっていう戦いを続けた結果、乗り越えてあの姿になったっていうことになります。それはもう3部始まったらすぐわかるところにはなってるので、これぐらいだったら言ってもいいんじゃないかなと思います。それ以上の深いところは、後々、
そうですね。
分かってくるのかなと思います。
So one final question from Saki about the beginning of part 3, which was already released in Japan. You see Stern, and his outfit looks very similar to that of Gilgamesh. And is there anything that the scenario team could mention about him? And Iwasaki-san was wondering, but Noguchi-san will provide the answer to whatever he's able to, which is you might be aware, but towards the end of part 2, of course, Stern has that lingering malice or the darkness that is burrowed deep in his heart. And so Gilgamesh pours in his power so that Stern can be rid of that malediction. And right now he's kind of in a deep slumber, sort of fighting it off internally. But at the beginning of part 3, he will have overcome that battle. And so that's why he looks the way he does at the beginning of part 3. Once the global players get to that, I'm sure you'll find out. But yeah, I think that's about the extent that we can divulge at this time.
All right. So do we have any other questions? No more questions. All right. So great. Thank you for answering those. I know a lot of people were eager, especially about the Rundall question, Alaya Rundall. Cool. So that's going to actually conclude it for basically everything that we had today on the stream. We had some really great scenes that we looked at, and we had some pretty great rewards. I'm going to let everybody have a chance to say their final goodbyes here, but just real quick, I'm going to go through and just show off the rewards that we had. So we answered 3 questions here, and we were able to get these rewards for everybody. So please look out for those in your present box coming up very soon. And then this is just a recap of the current events that are going on in the game. You can take on the Tetrasylphid, finish off the story quest, or the part 2 story missions. There's an arena event going on and everything else. So please dive in, take a look at that, and look forward to your presence. But before we close it out, I just wanted to give our wonderful members here from Japan each an opportunity to say any final thoughts that they have. So.
はい。それでは最後のコメントをしていきたいと思いますけれども、どうしましょう。
野口さんから。
野口さんからお願いいたします。
はい。2部の終わりまで、シナリオを読んでいただいたプレイヤーの皆さんもまずはありがとうございます。で、今回の生放送の中でいろいろお話しさせていただいたんですけども、まだまだ話したいことはたくさんありつつも、これからインタールードで明かされることとか、サードシーズン、要はクライマックスのシーズンに向けてっていうところで、シナリオについては引き続き、お楽しみくださいというところと、あとは、皆さんの好きなキャラクターを応援していただけたら嬉しいかなと思ってますので、引き続き、よろしくお願いいたします。
So thank you so much to everybody watching the stream and for playing and or reading the scenario throughout part 2 till the very end. Thank you so much. There was a lot that we talked about today on our stream. I mean, I still want to talk more, but there's just so much content, and we have our interlude coming up, and then we're going to have our 3rd season, which is going to be our climax. So we hope that players will continue to enjoy the game, and if you would continue to follow us and follow your favorite characters and cheer them on, that would be greatly appreciated.
次は岩崎さんですかね。
はい、わかりました。でもお話、野口さんとかぶっちゃうところも多いんですけど、お話を見ていただいて、で、あと、皆様の貴重なお時間を使って、このゲームを遊んでくれて、本当にありがたいことだなと思います。これからも野口さんと協力して、いろいろ楽しいものを届けていこうと思ってますので、皆様よろしくお願いいたします。あと、異界からいろんな人、ちょこちょこ来ると思うんですけど、その人たちも仲良くしていただけるととても嬉しいです。すいません。よろしくお願いいたします。
So this might overlap with what Noguchi-san was saying, but yeah, thank you so much for playing and taking time out of your valuable time out of your schedule to play our game. So we're very thankful that you continue to support us, and I will continue to work hard with Noguchi-san to bring more interesting plots and scenarios. So your continued support is definitely appreciated. We will have more friends, quote unquote, coming from another world, joining in on the fray. So I hope you treat them all as well. Thank you.
All right, Saki-san.
はい。皆さん今日は見てくださって本当にありがとうございました。そして岩崎さんと野口さん来てくださってありがとうございました。やっぱりシナリオを面白いって2部の、特に後半以降、本当にコミュニティから反応があったので、ちょっとこういう機会があると、みんな楽しいかなと思って、ちょっとやってみました。で、SNS とかでも、今、シナリオチームの皆さんのご協力いただいて、ストーリーで描けなかった部分とか、例えば初めてやったのが、初恋の日の投稿っていうのをこの間やってみたんですけれど、シナリオチームに、全面的にご協力いただいて、書けない部分のちょっと、ビハインドザシーンの物語とかを、ちょこちょこ投稿して、今後もいければすごくいいかなと思っているので、今後もそのコミュニティの、活動には、頑張っていきますので、今後もよろしくお願いします。
Thank you so much, everybody, for watching today's stream. Thank you, Iwasaki-san and Noguchi-san, for joining us today. I know throughout part 2, and especially towards the latter half of the season, we had such great response from the community. And so I wanted to have us kind of sit down and be able to interact with our players out there. So thank you again for this opportunity. And as for community engagement, we've done certain social several initiatives with the help of the scenario team, and we were able to bring content, story content that we couldn't put into the game itself, relating to the Days of First Love scenario team had helped us with writing some of these behind the scenes kind of episodes, which was a lot of fun. So we want to continue engaging the community, and so your continued support is definitely appreciated.
All right. Well, thank you to everybody that joined me here on stream today. I really appreciate it, and the fans really appreciate it as well. This has been a pretty interesting stream. It's been pretty fun. There's a few more things that I want to say real quick. We have a survey that is available for you to take that is about the Justin and Friends stream today. So look in the description or look in the info below Twitch, and you'll be able to click on it. I think there will be a link given here in chat in a moment as well. So click on that. It's very short. It'll just take you maybe 30 seconds or so to fill it out. So please do that. It really helps us getting all the information and everything that we need. There was something else I was going to say. Oh, yes. Aimi-san, thank you very much for your translation abilities. It is very much appreciated. So please give
I'm sorry
her
if I
a shout
butchered
out as
any
well.
names.
No, you did very well.
Yay.
So yeah, and also anybody that's in the Southern California area, I will see you next weekend if you head over to Honey and Butter. I will see you there. There's a little meet and greet. But yeah, so that's going to do it for us now. So please fill out the survey and look forward to our Justin and Friends number 14 stream. So yes, we will see you then. So thank you, everybody. Bye. Thank you. Bye, bye, bye.